Hey guys, my name's Jake, and today I'm going to try to draw a real-life version of the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. So, as some of you may have seen, in my last video I drew a real-life version of Disney's Robin Hood. And if you didn't get a chance to check that out, you can check it out here. I'll drop the link on the screen somewhere. That was such a cool project, and I was so excited with the results that I decided it'd be really fun to try to do a set of 3 of these real-life Disney drawings, all in kind of the same style, with a realistic version of the character, a couple of little added elements in the composition to kind of hint at who it's actually representing, with the same background and style. And I think it's gonna be a really cool set of 3 pieces when it's all said and done. So going through and trying to think of who would be some good characters to do, I decided that my second one would be the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. The thing that I'm most nervous about with this piece is definitely the white fur. I think it's really going to be a challenge to try to capture that same depth and texture that I was able to get with the fox, while only sticking to a few very light colored pencils in order to keep it a white rabbit. But I think it's gonna be a really fun challenge, and I'm excited to see if I can pull it off. So let's get to sketching. All right, so I'm getting into the sketch here, and while I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep in mind that I am trying to make a triptych, or a set of 3 of these drawings that are all gonna fit together pretty well. So I wanna have it set up kind of like I did Robin Hood, where I have the character asleep in the foreground, and then I have a couple objects that are gonna represent that character. For the White Rabbit, I thought it'd be really cool to do obviously the pocket watch, and then the Queen of Hearts. So I'll have a playing card crumpled up in the foreground with the character, but then I want to make sure that the rest of the piece is also carrying through a lot of those same elements that the first Robin Hood piece did. So I'm going to have a solid color background with the original cartoon version of the character kind of faded in behind, and I think that'll bring the whole scene together, obviously with the same border and framing and everything. Now, right here, I just want to draw a quick version straight from a reference of a rabbit sleeping, trying to figure out how the anatomy works and how they're going to lay down. A lot of these pictures that I'm finding of rabbits sleeping are just them kind of perched up really properly, and it's just a lot of fluff all around them. Not the most interesting pose, so I'm not really loving it, but it's definitely good to just put it on the page as I'm trying to brainstorm ideas and orientations. I'm also trying to go through and figure out how I want the watch placed, what angle it's at, and where I want to put everything in the scene. I've got a couple quick sketches down, but I'm not quite feeling it yet. And then I finally had the idea to kind of lay the rabbit on its side a bit to add a little bit more of a dynamic pose, as much as a sleeping rabbit can be dynamic. A little better than kind of prop. He looks a little more tired, and I like that. Okay. Let's get it. I know you just watched that whole sketching process, so I'm just gonna skip ahead here and show you the final sketch. Actually, you know what? I don't like the way the watch is set up here. Let's try that again. Much better. All right, so I'm gonna start coloring with the watch. It's small, easy, good place to build a little confidence, and I'm definitely gonna shy away from a real shiny metal, so that should make it a little bit easier. Plus, I think a darker brass gold will be a better effect anyways. I'm just going through and adding kind of the base layer of gold, coming back through with a little bit more of a rustic gold brown, and then deepening some shadows and pulling out some highlights, and kind of just trying to create that same metal effect. During the initial sketching process, I really liked the idea of using the watch chain as a cool design element to kind of drape it down and have it cross the page in front of the rabbit a little bit and just add a little bit more interest to the overall design. I was able to find a really good reference for the watch face that I liked a lot. It kind of had these quirky little numbers that I thought at the time would suit the style really well. It had a kind of, both the watch numbers and the hands had a kind of unique shape to them. So I thought they'd be kind of cool with this piece. I've drawn some pocket watches before, and they're always a really cool way to add a little hidden element or a little symbolism into the design. So for this one, I thought it'd be really cool if I could set the watch hands to the year that the original Alice in Wonderland book was published. Unfortunately, I Googled and found that that year is actually 1865, which isn't represented on a watch face very easily. So instead I checked to see what year Alice in Wonderland the movie came out, and that was 1951, which is 751 in military time. So that's the time that I decided to put on the face. I think it's a cool element, and it works out really nicely because both hands are pointing to the left, and I can let the chain kind of fall down the right side of the watch. Things almost never work out that well. Now that the watch is done, it's time to go onto the rabbit, and now I'm kind of out on my own here a little bit. I couldn't really find a great reference for a rabbit lying down fully in this pose, so it's kind of pieced together, much less a fully white rabbit that's well lit and would make a good reference for a drawing. So I'm kind of taking it easy. I have some small samples of fur that I'm gonna try to replicate, but basically I'm gonna go through with a bunch of different light grays and add in a little base tone for in the shadow areas, always kind of doing quick strokes in the direction that the fur should be going, or that I think it should be going, and try to get this thing looking right. It's going to be a slow build and really light process, but it's kind of what it has to be. Colored pencils don't lift well, so once they're down, I don't really have too much flexibility to erase out highlights. I have a little bit that I can do with the white colored pencil, but that will only take me so far. I'm alternating between warm and cool grays to kind of get a little variation. I'm not sure if that's the best way to go about it, but I kind of like the effect that it was giving me. And then as I go around to the more highlighted areas, I'm being a little bit lighter with my pencil, shifting to some lighter colors, but also applying lighter pressure so I can just get these really delicate, subtle effects as I go through. Making a little headway into this, and I just got a little impatient. It wasn't quite coming together in my head, and I wasn't able to visualize it quite as well as I would like to. Thought it would help to try to put in the color of the ear and then go back to doing the fur so I could see the rabbit kind of come to life a bit. I think it helped, but it's still definitely gonna be a task to tweak and keep working to get this fur to look exactly like I want it to. It's really just layer, do what I can to add depth into the shadows and come back once the entire rabbit has a light layer of fur and deepen the shadows in the darker areas and come in with darker grays and really shape the small little strands of hair so that I can sell this thing as real fur. It's a difficult process, and what I learned in doing the fox is definitely helping me, but my color selection is so much less, so it's just such a tedious process that if I overwork a section in a certain color, it's almost no bringing it back from that. So just really slow and careful. I decided to move on from the rabbit a little early and start laying in the card again, so I could just kind of visualize what this final piece would look like while I'm actually working it. To get a good reference for the playing card, I thought about just taking the Queen of Hearts out of my pack of cards and crumpling it up, but I couldn't bring myself to just ruin an entire deck of cards for this one picture. So I took one of the ad cards that they give you, to advertise another pack of cards, I guess, and crumpled that up and then took the Queen of Hearts as a reference and kind of tried to superimpose the shape of that playing card face onto the one that I destroyed. Overall, I think it worked pretty well as a substitute, and I still have a fully functional deck of cards, so I'm gonna call that a win. When I finally added the shadow under the card, it really helped me to get a better sense of the depth in this piece and where I wanted to be. Honestly, I wasn't feeling great about it, and then adding that and kind of adding a little bit more fullness and depth made me feel a little better. In kind of the same vein of doing the card before I finished the rabbit, I thought I just needed to go ahead and add the background in here. The white rabbit wasn't really popping off the white background, and I couldn't really get a sense if I was done with it. So I decided to go in and lay down the background color to get a better sense of what this thing was going to end up turning out looking like. I wanted to go with kind of a deep red, purpley velvet almost, a little desaturated like I did with Robin Hood, just to keep the value in that same family. So I laid down a base color of a warm gray and then came back with this Tuscan red that I thought had a really nice final color to it. I tried to do the rabbit in the same way that I did the cartoon version of Robin Hood, where I put down the same two first base layers that I used for the background and then came back with a lighter tone on top to try to shift the value to just a slightly different version of that main base color. Unfortunately for this one, any color that I added on top of that Tuscan red seemed to shift it to a lighter, more pink, orangey tone than I felt like I was getting from the background, so it just didn't seem to fit. I had to go through with a lot of different colors and trial and error on the final piece and on scrap paper to try to get it to the final result that I liked. Nothing quite seemed to work, and I couldn't tone down that pink as much as I would have wanted to. I actually ended up going over the entire background again for a third and fourth time. One, to add in one of those gray tones that I was adding into the rabbit to kind of shift the color family just a hair, and then go back over again with that Tuscan red just to bring it back to that reddish velvety look that I eventually wanted. I think it worked, but it was way more effort than I thought it was going to be to get this rabbit to fall into the background like I wanted. After finishing the background, I figured out I was almost done with the rabbit. I wanted to touch up a few more areas, especially the back foot, which I had been ignoring because I knew that something was wrong with it. Fix that sketch and fix the coloring, and in the end, I think it came out to a pretty cool final piece. Whew. All right, that was a tough piece. From start to finish, it felt like it was fighting me every which way. The sketch had to be reworked and tweaked a couple times at the start of the process, and the coloring seemed to be fighting me the whole way in order to try to find the right tone but not go too far, and really kind of get the subtleties and the fur and the right colors in the background. And it was rough. It fought me, and I am very pleased with the final result of this piece. That said, I think there are a couple things that I would change. I would do Roman numerals in the pocket watch instead of cardinal numbers. I feel like that just would have worked better. And kind of looking at the rabbit, I think the anatomy may be slightly off from what I would try to get normally. I think maybe the head's slightly big, maybe the rabbit's a little short. Maybe I'm crazy, I don't know. I do like this feeling of being able to kind of step back and find those areas of improvement. I think like that's always a really good thing as an artist, to develop that eye and to be able to point out areas of your piece that are off. With that being said, if you really liked this piece, I am going to put prints of it available in my store, as I did with the Robin Hood piece. Those are going to be available at jakesummerour.com, and I'll drop a link in the description. If you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, and if you really like this video and want to see more of this content, be sure to subscribe. That helps me out a ton as I continue to try to grow this channel and share some art with some more people. If you want to get notified as soon as the third and final installment of this Disney Real Life series comes out, be sure to hit the bell after you do subscribe. That video will be out in about 2 weeks. Super excited for that. Got the final idea already, and I think it's going to be a really cool conclusion to this project. But until then, I'll see y'all next time.